time that I got it, but the medicine cleared it right up, so no big deal. Oh, who knew? In today's show, we're going to talk about Power App security. Nice. Where are you? I'm playing and I can't find it. There it is. I like the poll position. All right, where is the tweeters? Oh. Well, go get them. Good. All right, I have tweeted about us. You made a block of plastic. Good job. Good job. Oh, hang on. They don't have your audio. They're... One more second. Okay, now they can hear
Not
you.
long
So
now.
start over
Now.
about why we should care about this box that you made.
Yes. Very significant. Yeah, you're great leading. Great lip
Did we
reading.
already post the link to this show?
Yes. I've got it right here.
Oh, I just posted. I didn't see it. So there we go. Okay. Anyway, all right. So Todd, show us the piece of plastic.
Everybody's already sitting down, right? Because this is, they're going to remember where they were when they see this.
Oh man, I guess they didn't hear about that medical thing either. That's good.
Oh yeah, boy, that's such a long story too. I'd hate to have to start from the top or the bottom, whichever's appropriate. So no, I printed this cube out. Now this cube is significant. It's like a reference bit. It is a 20 millimeter cube, or 2 centimeters on every corner, and you print it out to make sure that all your tolerances are exactly the same, so that X and Y and Z are all correct, and it is. And I was also having a problem with, and there's this weird. So there are so many things that have to be exactly right when you're doing 3D printing, and
Makes sense.
one of them is keeping, as your models, your printouts get bigger, keeping things stuck to the bed. I mean, if you think about it, there's, the goo coming out of the hot end and starts moving around. And so you have to have the bed hot enough that the piece that's touching the bed is just a little sticky, because it can't just be cold, because then it would just slide around after it hardened. But you can't have it so hot that it's just gooey, because then it just slides around because it's gooey. And so you have to find that temperature right in the middle. And then every type of filament that you have, and even the different colors of the same type of filament, all have different areas. So that was the other problem that I was having with this. I've printed this out a bunch of times, but like I would get, and then my bed's not completely evenly heated. So one time I printed it, one corner rose up because it was too gooey and it was getting pulled up. And so being able to print that cube out is a big deal, because, yeah.
But you have to do it for every color.
Every type of, so there are different types of filament. So PLA is one of the types, and then there's another one called ABS that's just different materials. So depending on how you want it to feel and all that, every one of those has different temperatures. And then within the type, so I've got like Hatchbox is the type of filament that I use, and I do mostly PLA. The different, the things that they use to dye it, so white and black and blue and red, impacts that temperature too. So you can't just say, oh, all Hatchbox PLA is this, and then expect it to always work. So there's just a lot of, yeah.
So my father-in-law works for a company that makes plastic. So like they make like the moldings that go inside of a refrigerator or a washing machine, that type of stuff. And
Gotcha.
so I've had lots of long conversations I didn't understand about the different ways of making plastic and the pieces that go in there, and it's you know, there's a difference between you know, how much recycled content do you have in there, really affects it as well, because basically, like when they make these molds, right, if it's crooked or whopper jawed, or you know, the corner came up like you're talking about, they can then throw it in a thing that grinds it back up into the pellets and then roll it back in. But the mixture of non-virgin to virgin plastic beads affects all of the same calculus type of stuff you were just talking about. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. There's just a lot of fiddly work. And then depending, so our school has a 3D printer, but it's a high-end one. Costs $3,500, something like that, a MakerBot. And it does a lot of the calibration and all that itself. Yep. So me and a buddy of mine have been playing with this, and that's the one that we've used the most. We're like, this stuff's easy. So then I buy one, and it's like a tenth of the price. It's like $300, but all the fiddling that we didn't have to do with the MakerBot, we have to do with ours. And then just because of when we bought it and all that, him and I bought different printers. So we each have little different problems because his does one thing that mine doesn't do. Oh, Jesus.
And this is just a classic case of you get what you pay for, right? I mean,
yeah.
You're like, there's no way that I'm going to spend that much on the printer. And now you're like,
God, I wish I'd have spent that on the printer. Yep. But it's getting fun. So I've been able to make a couple of things. The other thing is, as your models get taller, problems become more evident. And so nothing that I've printed has been very tall. I've just kind of slowly working it up because, yeah, that's what, you know. And the other thing is this thing right here. Guess how long this took to print? Again, 2 centimeter cube, mostly hollow.
I'm guessing hours, right? I mean,
yeah, it was nearly 2 hours to print this.
Yeah, I knew enough to know that it was not a done.
Yeah, and that's the other crazy thing. So you're like, okay, so then you have to figure that speed out. But the correct speed is also dependent on the z-axis or how high up you are. So like at the bottom, you can print at one speed, but then as you get higher up, you have to print at different speeds, and that's just more settings you have to put in, and so many fiddly bits, so much to it.
I can't. Yeah, you're a braver man than I am.
I swear a lot, and my hair's falling out, but I'm getting there. So I've got some things that I want to print, and I'm getting. That was a fun one.
You know, another piece you should do. I know you've got those electricity gaugers, right? Or you know, measuring little things, right? I bet this thing eats electricity for lunch, right? Between heating the pad and.
Yeah. So So you have to heat the bed, so that it will stick. And then you have to heat the hot end, the piece that actually melts the filament, and then you have to have big fans to cool the pieces. Yeah, so I should hook it up to the kilowatt and see what that thing takes.
I'd have to believe that it's a pig.
Yep.
Right, because and all the things like that you're heating up aren't they can't be insulated, right? Because they have to, so yeah.
They're making something hot, yeah.
Yeah, it's. Just throwing electricity to the wind. No one needs electricity.
It's cheap. Should we? It's that time. We've. Well,
good. I mean, we don't have any topics, but I mean, we probably should use this as a topic. You might get this rehashed.
You might get that depending on how wordy Shane gets about the business productivity. You might get to hear this one twice.
That reminds me, I should go grab.
I got all of I'm going to delete that. You know, I've been doing some cool stuff in PowerShell, but I don't know how to talk about it.
Because it's like too complicated. You can't like do it without talking for 7 hours, or?
No. There's a lot of context to set. I'll talk about it. I'll put notes in. I just been doing a bunch of different things, and it's just been fun stuff. All right.
I thought she did. Oh, okay. There's that. All right, let me just throw.
Do the thing.
This right there. Well, you'll yell at me for that. So.
I need to get a better light. I've been running outside and I'm starting to get tan, so my skin tone is getting weird.
Well, it must be cloudy there today, right? It feels like it's a little darker than
little overcast, a little. And I've got my ceiling lights are on. But again, my face is getting darker from running outside.
Well, maybe you should put on sunscreen so your face doesn't get dark.
Maybe that would, and so that would also allow me to wear sunglasses because I can't wear sunglasses when I run outside, or else I would have this bit of white here, really dark forehead, really dark cheeks. And
see, and my eyes have gotten like super sensitive to the sun. I can't be out in the sun without sunglasses, or I'm just like, no. So raccoon eyes, no problem.
I am there, and I have to wear them if I'm not running. But just the fear of that ridiculous tan is just my arms are all, and I've got like shirt tan, like short sleeve shirt tan, and then I run in a tank top. So then I've got like dark, medium, pasty white. It's I look good shirtless. I don't want to brag, but those people in Hawaii in a couple of weeks are going to get quite a show.
How about I assume you got some super white feet as well, right?
Yep, and also on my thighs. So I wear like the same style shorts. So I've got like pasty white thighs, and then right next to that dark brown thigh because all my shorts go.
Well, let's be real clear on that. Why aren't we live talking about this? But let's be really clear. No one is ever meant to see the male thigh. So if you're running in shorts and I can see your thighs, you have failed society. No
well, I mean,
one
like
wants
just
to see your thighs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Yeah, the male thigh is one of the most disgusting things ever. Yeah, absolutely. Mine included. Yeah.
Yeah, I just I mean, every now and then we see the running guys out here that have got the shorty shorts on. I'm like, dude. And Friends trivia, right? There was Phoebe dated a guy who wore those shorts and he hung out.
Yeah. So yeah, not only do I not have any of the shorty shorts, though, but the shorts that I wear also have like bike shorts underneath them. So yeah.
I don't want to see you in spandex either. Let's be very clear.
Well, there's the shorts cover the spandex.
I know, but I just wanted to get that out on record. I do not want to see you in spandex.
Should we go ahead and start? Lori's clearly if she's not throwing up in a trash can right now, she's ready to go.
Yes.
All right. Ready to go. All right. Gang signs, hand signals. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, number 435, recorded live Wednesday, June 12th, 2019. Hey, Shane.
Hi, Todd. I would just like to point out that all in the lead up to the pre-show here, we've said like 7 different trigger words for the internet monitor. So if one of us gets assassinated during this show, I feel like we'll be good.
I assume that because of my she who shall not be named and various eavesdropping devices for various governments. Yes, if I'm not taken out, it'll be a miracle. If they don't come crashing through the window, it'll be a good day.
It will be. So what's up? How are you? What's going on?
I'm doing well, but before we get any further, let's remind folks, all the links we're going to talk about. This will be a link-heavy episode. You can go to toddclint.com/podcast435. We'll have all the links there, and you can reach out to Shane or I. I'm at Todd Clint on Twitter, and you are?
At Shane's Cows.
You sure are. Absolutely. So, and talking about that, I'm a bit behind. I forgot to do last week's episode. So 435, which will be funny because I'm sure that I'm wearing the same shirt that I was last week. So it'll be fun that they'll be back to back. And you and I got the wear light blue message today. So that's we're in uniform.
Yeah, we did pretty good for a while there. We wore blue like every week, and then we diversified a little bit. But we went back to safety. We've regressed to the norm. Yeah,
well, and people don't understand the struggle is real when it comes to dressing myself. For those of you that are listening but not watching the video, congratulations on a good choice there. But the chair that I'm sitting in has a dark back. It's a black chair. So when the days that we record this, I try not to wear dark clothes because then my body kind of disappears into the chair and looks really weird. I just look like a floating head. But most of the clothes that I wear are dark clothes, and dark blue at that. So then I only have certain shirts that I can wear on Wednesdays, and this is one of them. And it's tough. The work that I go through to make sure this is a pleasurable experience.
Well, and we continually, once every few months I talk about it, but I yearn for the day that I can just have 7 of the same shirt and never again make a choice of what I'm going to wear. That sounds like the most comforting thing possible for this guy, right? Just I wake up, look, I put on a black t-shirt and I put on a red, pullover, and it's the same one every day. My life would be complete.
A lot of people pulled that off. Scott Guthrie, famous for just having, 100 red polos, and that's just what he wears, and it's his thing now. Mark in the chat room has mentioned that this is Todd's Wednesday shirt. And so that might that might be a thing now. I'll just hang it up over here, and then whatever I wear in the morning is fine. But at 9:45, I throw this thing on, get in uniform.
Yeah, when you have a Thursday shirt as well.
Well, I have a Thursday suite of shirts. Yes. So Shane, my beloved friend, has picked up on a trend that was completely unintentional. But I normally have lunch with my wife on Thursdays, and my wife is a big Foo Fighters fan. And we've gone to see them a bunch of times, and I've amassed a few Foo Fighters concert shirts. And he started picking up on the fact that on Thursdays, the day that I have lunch with my wife, I am more often than not wearing a Foo Fighters shirt. So I have my Thursday uniform as well. I am 2 days down, 5 days to go when I won't have to decide what to wear. I'm 28% through.
All right. Speaking of not making decisions, I think if you needed to do some SharePoint reporting, that's pretty easy, right?
That is an easy. So you'll be happy to hear my SysKit sign here. There've been
crooked as hell.
There have been 2 developments in that you will be happy to hear. Number 1, I have had people, customers, and all that. I swear, every time I turn my camera on, somebody mentions that sign and how crooked it is. And every time I just imagine wherever you are, you just like the smile comes over your face, and you're like,
I paid them all.
This flood of warm feeling, and you just don't even know where it comes from. But that's people complaining about my sign. But I did break down, and I emailed them and said, hey, what can we do about this? And hopefully they'll be sending something my way.
I'm just going to go buy one, right? I'm going to grab the logo off the website. I'm going to go to Fathead. I'm just going to send you the gosh darn, right? A lot of editing went in right there.
Yep. We'll fix that post.
And just be like, boom. Because, yeah, it's maddening to me.
Yep, it is the source of much discussion. Yeah, so that's you will love that. But yeah, SysKit, they do a lot of great reporting. It has been the answer to a lot of customer questions I've had lately about reporting on security issues, what things are shared with who, and all that. And then this last week, they did, maybe a week ago, I forget, Tony, one of the founders, published this great blog post on top 10 Office 365 best practices that every admin should know. There's some really great tips in there. So I encourage you to go check that out. And it's one of those things you don't have to give them your email address and sign up for a thing, and they send you a PDF, and you just go to the webpage and it's just there. And so that's a good one. So kudos to Tony for that, and go check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes for that.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, right, so Mark just planted in my head. Right now, imagine them sending like a thing that like does the whole wall. So like the whole behind you is like a scene of where their office is. It's got SysKit logos and Batman jumping over. Right. I want a whole thing now. If they give you something that looks like that, I'm gonna be very sad. So
I think it will be like that. So I have my whiteboard over there. I'd have to move that a little bit. I don't think they can see that in the podcast, but you can see it. I'd have to move that over a little bit. But yeah, I'm in this area here. We could work this out. So this was all, the Zagreb skyline, and maybe the SysKit building in the background with the big logo on it. I'd be down with that. It's a beautiful place.
There you go. And folks, you can tell Todd's soul is for sale. So if you want to have your skyline back there, just let him know, and he'll cut you.
In the chat room, Lori's talking about having somebody paint a branded mural. I had never thought about that. One of my friends that I used to work with did that for her kids' room. She had 2 twin boys, and they were all that his boy running around and all that. And she painted like a safari mural or something in their bedroom, and it looked amazing. And I'm like, God, I would love to do that. But I've got so many TVs and stuff hanging on the wall everywhere. Like, I don't even know where the chunk of wall is. I do that.
You wouldn't want art to throw off your TV game. No,
God, no. God, no. Ambiance, and have to give up a TV for ambiance. Are you crazy?
Well, do you remember the one that Cam on Modern Family got made for when Gloria had their kid? So Cam,
Joe?
Yeah, right. So when Joe was born, Cam got Gloria out of the house and had a big mural painted of like Jay doing like this, religious pose. Like it took up the whole wall. It was terrible. But now I'm imagining you walking into your house and this being a giant mural of like Todd lording over everyone, maybe doing the Queen's wave or something.
It's been discussed. So in our living room, our living room opens to the second floor. So the wall is 28 feet or whatever. And there is a fireplace, and then there's just a big expanse of space between the fireplace and the top of the second floor. So I told Jill that I wanted to get a painting made of like me sitting on a steed, shirtless, that would just look perfect right over the fireplace.
God help us.
So far, that plan hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, we've only lived here 3 years, so these things take time. I understand.
Maybe your 50th birthday.
Maybe, but just some stately pose,
I was thinking straight on the Putin, right? Because
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That was my inspiration. Yes.
yeah. And another keyword, right? The assassins are warming up.
Yep. So it's been discussed. I've never priced that out, but I wonder what that would cost just to have that painted. I could surprise her with it the next time she travels for work. I could have her come back and help.
Well, so speaking of art, Brett was just asking about, so behind me, once again, if you can see the show, I wish everyone would watch the show. I would do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But so he said, why do you have a bunch of poodles behind you? And so to that end, what I did was, for MBAS, we had a bunch of these Chewy dogs made.
Down. All we're seeing is your palm. Or at least, you got a different camera.
Yeah. You see my palm. They see them. Yeah. But so there you go, a little he's probably about a 4-inch little guy. I kind of pull it back so Todd can see it too. But a little 4-inch little Chewy stress tool, because back in the day, right, we had the famous Power Apps 911 cows, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or not Power Apps, but SharePoint 911 cows. Yep, see, Todd's still got one. And this is my fancy one. This is the limited edition. I have a Todd Clint autograph.
Ooh, and
a Steve Carvajal autograph.
Oh.
And a myself. I signed his butt.
This one of my kids took a bite out of. So, and that was just last week too.
And do you have? Let's see. I mean, so now we're talking about animals, right? So believe it or not, I have Piggy. There. All right. We're going hard here. Do you have the donkey? Todd has a donkey, and the most rarest of the rare. Oh no! Oh, there's another rare one. Do you have a horse? He looks.
Of course.
Well played. Yes, and then finally, yes, to Todd's point, he had. We talked our friends at Rackspace into making some bull.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's I'm impressed. Good job. I mean, look, both of us literally with no prep. We didn't talk about this ahead of time. We both just have them at arm's length at all times. They're like our safety blankets.
Yep. And the other thing is, when my kids were younger, they loved playing with these things. And every time I was like, don't. And they took the bite out of the one, and I'm like, yes, it was.
Yeah. So we still have a box of about 100 pigs.
So Lori would like one. Well, she wants the horse.
Or I don't think I mean, I literally think that this, I mean, the fact that Todd has a horse is impressive. I don't think I know of another. So those are the only 2 horses I even know that still haven't been thrown away by someone at this point.
Did I tell you my funny story about Pat the SharePoint cow from the SharePoint conference?
No, but you need to set that up and explain everyone what that is, and then I want to hear this funny story.
All right. So Shane and I have been giving out these cows. I mean, I don't know exactly when you first made these, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
And we would throw them out like candy at conferences, gave them out for everything. And then probably 5 years after we did that, was it in Chicago for Ignite when we found out about Pat the SharePoint cow?
I'll believe that.
Yeah, so it was like 3 years ago. A woman came up to us, introduced herself, and she had the cow. We're like, oh, that's great. You got the cow. And she's like, no, this is Pat the SharePoint cow, and I'm introducing Pat to his daddies. And we're like, oh, that's adorable. But then she explains to us that Pat the SharePoint cow is a thing. Pat the SharePoint cow has a Facebook page, and she took Pat the SharePoint cow all over the world and had been doing it for 5 years. Pat had been in Greece and South America, and everywhere she went, she took this picture of Pat the SharePoint cow with her and had this following on Facebook, and all of this was happening unbeknownst to us. We had just no idea whatsoever that this was going on. And it was amazing. So it was a pretty fun thing, and we follow her on Facebook and all that. That's the setup. Would you like to add any to that before I go to the next piece?
I was just going to say that, I mean, it is overwhelming the number of places to this day, right? Pat has been to probably 50 different countries, and then it's mind-blowing. So
yeah, it's like the flat Stanley thing, but with the SharePoint cow, and it is just, and she's not stopped. It's been all over. So that's the setup.
Got it.
So when I started working at Simpraxis, we picked up a customer, and I'm not sure if I can divulge any of that, and started working with some people, and a couple of them were going to be at the SharePoint conference here a month ago. So one of the women that I work with a bunch came up, and we hadn't met in person, but we talked, over email and on calls and all that. And I'm like, oh, it'd be great to meet you in person and kind of put a personality with all that. And so she comes up and she's like, hey, I'm whoever. I'm like, oh, it's great, good to meet you. This thing, boy, that guy over there is terrible, and I can't believe they made us do this thing where we commiserate. And she pulls a cow out of her thing, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You've got one of the cows too. She's like, this is Pat. I'm like, oh, you got to borrow Pat. That's great. She's like, no, I'm the Pat lady. You met me like 5 years ago. We've known. I'm like, oh my God. So for however long I've been working with this woman, and I only know Pat. I've never even I felt horrible. I'm the most terrible person ever. So for 9 months I've been working with this woman, and she's like, oh, it's Todd. We go way back. We're buddies. And I'm like, oh, this is so cute. I'm just terrible. And
no, in reality, she has your child, right? Because they like Pat refers to us as Pat's daddies, and there's a storyline. I mean, it is the commitment to this story is just crazy.
Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was realizing was with the new Chewies, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do introduce Chewy. I don't know how I'm gonna play that out yet, but we'll have to strategize on that one.
Yeah, I like that. I like keeping the legacy alive. I'm with that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and so slightly completely tangential, but you set me off.
As is often the case.
Yes, in a positive way. So I was doing my session at MBAS on Monday, and it was the top 10 things that I know from building thousands of apps or something like that. And so, I'm telling different stories kind of to augment all the different points I'm trying to make. And at one point, something that I said, I started explaining this giant mistake that one of my customers had made, right? And basically the idea was that he named everything ever project. And so all the type ahead stuff is just worthless because literally there's 400 objects that start with project. So you just can't type project. It just makes you hurt yourself. So I get done with the session, and then this guy comes up, right, and there's a giant line, which that's a different topic you guys don't want to hear about. But so I get working through the line, and this one guy's like, hi, I'm Don. And I'm like, oh, hi, Don.
Glad to meet you, Don. Yep.
He's like, no, Don. And I'm like, oh, hi. So it was the customer. He's like, hey, thanks for not calling me out directly. I'm like, I had no idea you were here. So, I mean, he was cool with it, but it was just funny.
Yeah.
I had worked, I didn't realize the room's so big, right? You just don't know all these people. They're in here, and most of the people we work with virtually these days, so you don't really see and know. No. And so, I'm telling a story about this dude that is sitting in the audience. I was cracking on Daniel Christian at one point.
Oh, that's easy to do, though. Yeah, that comes very naturally, yeah.
Yeah. And so when, halfway into it, all of a sudden Daniel says, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, and there he was in the middle of the room, like, hi, Daniel.
Son of a.
So that was a little weird. And then the last stupid thing I did in that session before we start talking about the show as a whole is I was making fun of a former student who she basically explained the reason that she uses code comments is because sometimes her users are like, oh, JK kidding, can you put that back in, put that code back in that I just had you delete, right? And so when she said it, I'm like, JK, oh, you mean joke? And so then everyone starts laughing, and I'm like, what happened here? Turns out that JK doesn't mean joke, or isn't the abbreviation, the cool kid abbreviation for joke. It's the cool kid abbreviation for just kidding.
Yes. I can't believe you didn't know that.
I had nothing. I was just like, oh, JK. And
you are younger than me. You're supposed to be more hip to these things than I am.
And usually, I'm pretty good. But yeah, I think this in my head when she did it, I literally couldn't process, because she just literally used it in the middle of a sentence that I was trying to explain.
Yep.
And I didn't have, and so the first JK was joke, so I just ran with it, and yeah, it was a sad moment for me, and I didn't even know she didn't tell me I'd screwed it up. It was this audience who all revolted against me.
I can get that. I've been there. So, and it's funny that I knew that and you didn't, because Lori can attest to this. When we chat online and whatever, I am horrible at picking those things out. I can never pull context clues out for whatever reason. I'm just an idiot with those kind of things. So I'm always the guy that makes that mistake. And it is so awesome to see you be the idiot. I mean, it just,
It was. I mean, the good news was, to Daniel's point, Daniel's in the chat room now too. All right, but to his point, the audience really woke up when it, all work against me. And I made some references to some TV shows. I apparently had a very young audience. I made some, I think it was like a Cougar Town reference, and they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "I can't help you, kids these days."
Yep, I do that once in a while, and I was with some people and was mentioning some music and that, and I'm telling the story, and then one of the people's like, "Oh yeah, my dad loves those guys." I'm like, well, I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, well, and then Daniel Laskowitz, he took a picture of me up on stage on Sunday, posted on Twitter, positive, yay, whatever. And I looked at that picture, and the way that like the light and the angle, all you can see is my gray hairs. Like you can't see a single dark color hair. I'm like, guess that's what I look like when I'm 100. I mean, it was a terrible picture of me. So
it's how you look at 40. Also, I didn't want to, or 41. I guess I don't want to.
I know. I keep threatening. My kids ask me why I don't dye my hair. I keep thinking, we'll adjust your minch.
Yeah, a little Grecian formula. Yeah,
anyway, sorry. So all right. So MBAS, a great conference. I know a lot of you are still kind of like, that whole Power Platform, what do you do? But I can tell you that there was, I think, 4,500 attendees there.
Wow.
And I mean, every year we just keep getting bigger and bigger. And so like in the keynote, I wish I had taken notes, but we know how I feel about taking notes.
Yeah. Or keynotes, I'm surprised you showed up at all, honestly.
I got paid to do it.
Okay, well, fair enough.
It slipped me a 20 and said, go sit in the front row and clap. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
But no, so at the keynote, they were talking about, I guess Power Apps has seen, or the Power Platform as a whole has seen a 700% growth in the last year. Like 700% seems like a lot. They quoted a bunch of numbers around the millions of active, daily and monthly users and things like that. I mean, the numbers they're getting pretty big pretty fast. And so it's just real interesting to see. And another piece of it though that was new, this is kind of, back to Microsoft never really understands like what thing they're going to say that's really going to resonate with the audience. But very early on, he kind of was painting the picture. It was James Phillips, so kind of like the HMFIC of all of this whole story. And if you don't know what that means, then it's not bad. If you do know what it means, then I didn't corrupt you. So anyway, I wish you guys could see Todd's pain look on his face right
now. I got to edit this, and yep.
But so he was showing like the platform as it's being built, right? And so obviously Azure has kind of become the center, right? Everything that Microsoft
foundation.
is doing. Yep. Foundationally, they're building every single thing on top of that. But what was interesting was that the second piece of the foundation, so the next rung up the ladder, is actually the Power Platform.
Really?
So they are starting to rejigger the business so that becomes another foundational element. So Office 365 is actually one more step on top of that. It is not below it like I would have thought. Right, as a Power Platform guy, I've always had this fear that Office was going to kind of absorb us at some point. But it is one of their key pillars right now. They've kind of shifted their strategy again, and not shifted, but they continue to refine their global Microsoft strategy. And Power Platform has just become the second pillar in their stacks of building out this wonderful world that we live in. And I just thought that was so powerful to really understand that, man, that Microsoft is not like, this is just a thing. Microsoft is like, this is foundationally what we're running the company on going forward. So
interesting. Yeah, that is. I would have thought of the Power Platform and Office 365 as siblings, both built on top of Azure.
Yeah. So as they continue to rework and redo, and I think a part of that is the CDS, the Common Data Service, as we continue to use that as a platform. And I have one customer who has made that shift where, basically all new business data lives in CDS because they want one version of the truth. Finally, they want to, start to consolidate. And so instead of having databases here and spreadsheets there, anything that is net new business data is going to live in CDS because it's their platform that then they're going to, build out the rest on. So
gotcha.
Very, very powerful.
Oh, that's good.
So I don't know. I thought that was just one of those messages that like he was just kind of saying that in passing, and all of us are like that's kind of a big deal. You should probably stop and talk about this longer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose at that point they're preaching to the choir. It's,
Yeah, well, that's another really still a tough thing. I'm sure that they really struggle with at these conferences is, once again, I polled my audiences and it's literally a 50-50 split of IT and non-IT.
yeah.
So, you kind of have different expectations and different thoughts about what should be and what shouldn't be and ways to present the info. So, yeah, I'm sure it's a tough message to kind of get and play out there.
Yep. So they had a bunch of great announcements, and I didn't follow it as much as I probably should have. I was busy and all that. But can you talk about a couple of the big announcements? Because we were whining the last couple of weeks how we didn't have much to talk about because they were saving things up for the conference. So what did they talk about?
So the ones, I guess we'll just start with the ones I care the most about first.
Well, of course, yes.
And so for Power Apps, one of the things that they kind of announced at Build that was coming, but they didn't really give any substance around, was bringing artificial intelligence into Power Apps.
Gotcha. Yep.
And so, and the idea though is that one of the things I've always loved about Power Apps is this idea they want to democratize development, right? It shouldn't just be for us super IT geeks. It shouldn't be for developers. And so they've done that kind of with the first pass here, but this is the next tier of that. So now they're saying, all right, Azure's got this amazing cognitive services capabilities and text analyzing capabilities, but those are still all API, JSON, whatever that thing is, driven. Mm-hmm. And so they've now bolted in 4 new AI functionalities that are just going to be components. So there's now a business card scanner. Like there's literally just a control. You drag it on the screen, you take a picture of a business card, and it spits out the text. No configuration, no nothing. Yep. Just boom, there you go. There's your business card data. And like these announcements, I didn't believe them. So what did I do as soon as I got back to my room is went and built an app. And nope, this works. You just take a picture.
I'm surprised you could find a business card to test your app with, honestly.
I had my own personally.
Yep.
But so that was pretty nice. Then the next one was they have this whole idea of a object detector. So the idea is that you take a picture and it can go and so if I took a picture of my background here, you take a picture of that and it would be able to tell me that there are 9 Chewies or 10. There's one hiding over there. That there's 10 Chewies in the picture. So what we're seeing is like a lot of people are wanting to do like audit apps. So go in and so the keynote demo was the guy from Pepsi, right? He wants to be able to walk up to the shelf, take a picture, and it'd be like, oh look, there's 7 2 liters of Mountain Dew, there's 3 2 liters of Diet Pepsi.
Brilliant, love it, yeah.
And so that capability has been in Azure for a long time, but once again, you had to write code and you had to train models. Or it was a lot of work to make that come. Azure spit that type of capabilities out. So in Power Apps now, you go in, you say, oh, right, I want to create a model. And without getting into the details too much, you have to feed it at least 15 pictures of the object. Okay. So I ran around my hotel room and did photo shoots with the little Chewy dolls, right?
Yep, from all the different angles and all that, yep.
Yep. And so I did 21 pictures because I got carried away. It was too cute. Like,
that'll happen, yeah. Oh, Jesus.
So you then upload the 21 pictures, and then it walks you through a wizard where it goes picture by picture, and you just draw a bounding box around each Chewy.
Yep.
And very quickly, as you're going through the process, if you have multiple Chewies in the picture, it'll like when you do the first one, it'll like hint, like, hey, is this? I think
there's a Chewy over here. Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 minutes at a time, I tagged the 21 pictures. It then scores it, so it sends it to Azure, and I got 100% score, which apparently no one else has pulled off yet. I was like, you guys just need pictures of Chewies.
Oh, good Lord.
Because the keynote demo was only 83%. And that was the biggest number that they could get for the data they were using.
And those are highly scripted, yes.
Yeah. But so they, okay, you got a model built. And then you go into Power Apps, you just add a control, an object detector control, and you tell it which model to use, and you're done. You take a picture, and then it processes, and then 5 or 7 seconds later, it's like, oh, there's 3 Chewies in that picture.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, and watching the demo, you're like, oh, yeah, whatever, right? They scripted this thing to an inch of its life, and that's why it all worked. But while sitting in my room, drinking adult grape juice, when I should have been sleeping, in 20 minutes, I was able to take all the pictures, tag all the pictures, build the model, and build an app to do it, and it was real world working. And so then I started like playing with it. So because my hotel room had the same lighting, so then I tried it in other lighting, like in other normal lighting scenarios. It worked. So then when I was sitting in the keynote, I tried it because in there it was kind of like a black lighting, right? So he was a different color because of the weird colors of the lights and stuff.
Right.
It worked in there. I was like, this is good. So there is a lot of people who I've had a lot of customers kind of talk about this already, so I'm excited to show some of them. Another one that I haven't done that I will probably do today actually is same type of concept but with a piece of paper. So imagine like when you get an invoice back from whoever you're used to purchasing all your materials from. And so today with the new capability, what we can do is we can train a model to be like, all right, when I get a Home Depot invoice, right, the invoice number's up here, the amount's up here, you can train it the same way we trained it for the Chewy dolls, and it's supposed to be able to extract all the data out of an image without, once again, they're going to help me build the model. I just need to take 15 pictures and so.
They demoed some of that at the SharePoint conference, some of the AI stuff, and they walked through the learning bit, and it was a contract, I think, or some sort of legal documentation, but they were using it to extract probably the same thing as extract different fields out. And so like the example they were saying, it was some legal document and it said, the city of Modesto or whatever. And so they're like, all right, any text that follows city of, probably a city name. And so, and you give the scores and they walk through that, and I'm like, that is just pretty cool. So I kind of want to play on it a little bit to see. So they do the business card, the counting. What other AI stuff did they add?
So then the last one of the AI piece is a text sentiment analysis. So you can give it snippets of text and you can teach it to. No, sorry, it's not a sentiment analysis. Well, it is, but it isn't. So this is more like Lori's world, but you can give it data.
Okay.
And so you can say, all right, here's all the data on a service history. Do you think this, based on this data, we can determine whether or not the person's going to need a refund for this item.
Right.
And so we can predict that binary yes or no on a refund, and we can show it a bunch of history around all of the order information, service tickets, all of that. And then that'll help determine. So you show it all this data, you give it the parameters, and it will tell you, okay, based on the data you showed me and the outcomes you showed me, basically we figured out that if the purchase date was less than 12 days and they'd had 2 service tickets, we're almost always going to flag this thing as refunds probably about to happen.
Yeah.
But so they not only do they build the data model, they show you the weighting factors, and you could go in and say, oh, you know what? Well, in reality, that one field I know is bad data, and you're using it, so I can actually just go in and say, ignore that field as you build the model. So I can even massage the way the model is computed and used once I kind of get the output. So
clever. I like it.
And once again, I didn't write a single line of code. I just walked through little wizards and all this. So it's all in preview. So I'm certain it's not perfect, but first year of test, it's been pretty darn good.
Yeah, and the AI bit, you and I don't do anything with AI at all, but we have Teslas, and it uses that sort of data to do the auto driving, yes. and it's that same thing, trying to because the problem with AI with self-driving is how do you pick out a motorcycle and a bicycle rider in a car and a street sign and all that. We're getting to see a little bit now how the sausage is made, and just think of the millions of hours of video that Tesla has gone through and just tagged all of the cars, all of the bicycle riders, and all. So I enjoy seeing kind of how that's built up. It makes me feel a little bit more confident about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think you said millions. I think they actually have crossed the billions line. Right? Every now and then they throw the number at us of how much. And to your point though, the key factor here is the data, right?
Yeah.
And that's where Tesla is just destroying everyone else. Tesla has more road data by a factor of infinity to the rest of these guys. So.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting about how they do it is so for those of you that haven't had to suffer through Shane and I fawning over our Teslas, it's got all the auto driving. And I was watching not yesterday's keynote, but the one that he did on AI here a few months ago. They had the guy out who was kind of leading that. And when you've got the autopilot turned on all the way, so it's controlling your speed and it's driving and all that, Anytime a human interacts with that, so anytime the AI wants to go a little to the left and you tug it to the right and adjust it, that gets sent back to them and they analyze it and figure out what they did wrong. So not only is it the billions of miles that we've traveled, but every single time we go in and tell the autopilot you did something wrong, they go through and see why we didn't agree with the autopilot to see. And again, it's just more of those data points. When you see this situation, don't go so far to the left, nudge it to the right. And that's just amazing.
It absolutely is. So anyway, so that was probably my number one announcement that they came out of there. The number two announcement is portals.
Okay, tell us about portals.
So the idea, and these are not in preview yet. These are still
just
coming.
Teasing us. Yeah. Oh, you stinkers.
But the idea is that, one of the big knocks on Power Apps has been, you can't do external sharing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so now imagine as they start to look at this portals product that you could build think of it as a website.
Okay.
But a website that you would build with Power Apps. So you'd be able to build the forms and functionality that you want with Power Apps, but surface it all on a website that can either be anonymous or it could be driven by, the different types of logins that, Office 365 supports.
Yep. So I knew this was coming. There were a couple of pieces of this that were not what I thought they would be. So I was surprised. So in my head, I was thinking very myopically, it's going to be, you're just going to be able to take a Power App that you've got and share it with, todd.clint@gmail.com. You're done. Or, todd@toddclint.com. And then that's it. End of story. So the fact that it's being serviced as a web page, I haven't completely wrapped my head around what that means. That was a little bit of a surprise. And I was also surprised that it was available anonymously. So what are the limits to those two things? What are the limits to it being a web page as opposed to an app? And what are the limits to being anonymous as opposed to logged in?
This is where I don't have answers for you. The story stopped real fast, right? So they kind of said, here's portals. They showed us a quick demo of interacting with a portal that,
right,
just was a simple, I guess, a web page, for lack of a way of putting it, but a simple web page where they were collecting some data and then pushing it in. But no, we don't have any of the questions to, is the scenario that you painted even possible? What does this look like if I want to take and embed it into like a SharePoint app? But they said they've said that that's coming real in this. So I think this is one of those things where they showed us stuff before they probably should have, because there's more questions than answers. But I just think it's very interesting to kind of keep on your minds, right? Because one of the things that sometimes people do is they rule out Power Apps because it's just this internal only thing, and Microsoft gets that. And I think their vision of where this ends with this portals product is going to change a lot of things about the world.
Yeah, and certainly that's why they announced it before it was ready, so that anybody making technology decisions that's ruling out Power Apps because of this lack of functionality will now step back and think a little bit more about it. I think it's a huge, legitimate knock on Power Apps right now, so I'm glad that they added that. I am curious how it works out, what the final product looks like.
Yeah, well, and I can tell you that. So we talked to a lot of people. We've had several people come in. They're like, "Hey, I want you to build me a Power App that I can use anonymously." Right. So instead of building something and putting it in the web store or the Apple Play Store, right? We want to build our platform there. And today the answer has been no, but I don't know. I mean, when that becomes a yes, I mean, I can see this hurting like the literal world of building iOS and Android apps.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, instead of writing a bunch of Swift or whatever other languages that stuff's written in these days, like, I just go get this Power Apps thing, do some dragging and dropping, and I got an app. I mean, rapid prototyping just.
Yeah. It's there's just a lot of great things that opens up. So I'm curious to see how that happens. Yeah.
Yep. So that will be very very cool. But so we had the AI announcements. We had the portal stuff. There was a bunch of other like admin-y stuff. I don't think that our listeners really want me to get into the minutia, but Power Apps continues to expand and converge. So if you're a Dynamics user today and you're kind of like, Dynamics and Power Apps, they both kind of claim to be Power Apps-y things and be siblings, but they don't feel that way. The convergence is going to continue very rapidly, where Dynamics is not going to feel like, Power Apps is our dirty stepchild brother. So I think that's going to come pretty fast.
Yeah. And I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, but you were talking about how the Power Platform is becoming more important. And it's, but just in the last week, we saw the announcement that Salesforce is buying Tableau. And it's just, and I mean, I'm numb to this anymore, but isn't it the biggest acquisition ever? It's, 14
Gosh.
billion or something like that. So those numbers obviously are going to continue to get bigger over time. But I think Salesforce, guys like you and I don't think about Salesforce as being a cloud entity or a cloud platform, but outside of us, everybody thinks of Salesforce as a huge cloud platform. And the fact that they bought Tableau's been around forever. Everybody's used it. That is huge. Now, I think it's more of a big deal for Lori in the Power BI space than it is for you in the Power App space. But it just goes to show that it's not just Microsoft doing the Microsoft thing and having the Microsoft blinders on. The industry is really going this direction and in a huge way.
Yes. Well, yeah, and the Tableau acquisition is, if I had been advising Salesforce, understanding that, right, that their idea was that, yeah, Microsoft's kicking our butt because of the Power Platform story. We got to build our own.
Yep.
Honestly, all that they were getting out of Tableau was a book of business and a name, right? Their
Yep.
tech is just so far behind right now.
Yep.
I don't know if I probably shouldn't, but someone in the chat room was just talking to me about, their company's still very much based on Tableau. And he's like, basically, it's about 800 years behind. They have to like keep buying bigger and bigger licenses because it can't run, it can't keep up, it can't do refreshes. It was never meant to be cloud software, and they're trying to force it out there, and they're charging people $1 gazillion for it, and Power BI pretty much destroys it.
Yep.
So I feel bad for Salesforce a little bit because, I mean, like I said, they got a good book of business, they got some revenue around that, and they got the name, but man, they're going to have to rewrite that puppy.
Well, I think the book of business and the momentum that the name has is exactly what the value is.
Yep, I hope that's what they bought it for.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that they did. But it really shows that it's not just Microsoft that thinks this is the future. It's everybody.
Yeah. So
I had not thought about that, but once I saw the announcement, it made perfect sense.
So the other big thing I think I wanted to mention about the conference, and this is more of a commentary on kind of the Power Platform as a whole, right? We've talked about it before, but half the people there are IT, half of them are non-IT, but they're also the amount of diversity that we're seeing, right? So not only from that type of standpoint, but just, I mean, it is people coming from all over the globe, right? I mean, there's so many. You go to this thing and you're just like, this is awesome. The whole world is doing this, right? It's not just a bunch of ugly people and
Yep.
It's the whole world has kind of embraced it, and it's all the different cultures, it's all the different races and blah 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 blah, all these things, and I don't even know how to explain it, just how awesome it is that this is one big pot of people instead of just being like one little super nerd group. I remember like when we used to go to like the those data conferences, right? And it was just a bunch of guys and square glasses, right? And they were the only ones there because they were the ones that were doing that stuff, right?
Yep.
That's not
Long lines at the men's room. Yep. All that.
No, not anymore. This was a very big, diverse group. And Microsoft is continuing to, embrace this. And Microsoft in their messaging, so not only their sessions, but their keynotes, they've got a big focus on community, like so the Power Addicts, which is really taking off. But so Microsoft talked about community almost everywhere. And customer stories. If you think back to the SharePoint conferences, we always had like 3 sessions that were customer stories, right? It's like, we got a whole bunch of technical stuff, and then 3. They are running like multiple tracks of customer stories at these type of events now, because that's really where people are getting the most value. Is not, how does all this work? What they want to hear is how is Manuela at Virgin Atlantic revolutionizing their air industry with a bunch of these Power Apps, right? Or how, the guy, so was it the bank in South Africa? I forget what the name of the bank is. SoftBank, I think. They've got like 600 Power Apps already out in production. I mean,
wow.
And they keep showing and telling these stories. And then they're letting these people not only tell their stories of like, yay, we're so big, but talk about the lessons learned and how they're applying the information that's coming out of Microsoft, how they're taking their own twist on. They're letting these customers actually tell their stories of how they're using it instead of just a finely tuned script. And I think that's a total changer compared to the previous conferences where it was really just tech.
No, that's great. That's great. It's a very exciting field. I'm a little jealous that I don't partake in it, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So then the last little piece there is the MBAS. All the sessions are available on demand. So you can grab the link from the show notes, but you can go out to the community gallery and so you can watch my session and listen to me mess up the JK thing.
Don't watch Shane's, because he looks at those numbers, he refreshes those pages, and every time you watch one of Shane's videos, it just inflates his already massive inflated ego just that much more.
And every time I refresh, the number goes up by 1. So look, one person watch it, 2 person. Look, these people just can't stop. It's as fast as I refresh.
They can't get enough of me. Oh, good Lord.
So sorry. I feel like I just dominated the whole show, but
that's what we were.
That platform is awesome.
They've been like good. So I'm going to interject some SharePoint and some
SharePoint?
PowerShell, if you guys don't mind. So SharePoint, and I can't remember if this is a new announcement or not. Let me look at the date on the article. So I think it came out in the admin center, but then Microsoft has increased the number of hubs that you can have now in SharePoint Online. So hubs is the technology that we're telling people they should use instead of subsites.
Gotcha.
And that is a lesson that has been tough for people who have large on-prem, engagements. It's been weird to me. I've been talking to a lot of customers about migrating to Office 365. Far and away, like by a factor of 5, probably, the number of customers that I have that are on SharePoint 2010 eclipses every other version of SharePoint.
Okay.
So it's and you and I have talked about this before, that 2010 was kind of the version where SharePoint really came into its own. It's when service apps showed up and so there is just a lot of customers that 10 years ago got SharePoint 2010. It was exactly what they needed, and they've just stuck with it. But with that becomes all of the things that we thought about at that time, subsites and all that. So I have this conversation about hubs a lot with customers, and it's good to see that Microsoft, the idea of needing 2,000 hubs, I can't remember what the limit was before, but it was some number significantly less than 2,000. But glad to see that they didn't just put it in place to check it off a list and then forget about it. They're increasing it. That's good.
Yeah, well, it tells you the adoption must be running rampant as well, right? If people are really beating them up over this.
Yep. So there's that. Another thing that I only bring up because I want to complain about it.
Nice.
Is another thing that came up in the Office 365 Admin Center was that now in Yammer, when you upload a file to Yammer, it now gets stored in SharePoint. Yeah. So this should sound familiar. If you are in a group chat product, if you're chatting with your team and you decide to upload a file, the chat product itself doesn't fuss with files. It just becomes a chat product, but it uploads the file to SharePoint. That just seems such a brilliant idea. And now they have adopted Yammer that does the same thing. So now if you're using Yammer and you upload a file for your Yammering pleasure, it ends up in a SharePoint site, so you can take advantage of all the SharePoint functionality.
So in one of the IT governance sessions for the Power Apps thing, one of the group's processes was to invite people into a Yammer channel, like once they built their first app. And I'm like, why would you do you hate these people? I wanted to raise my hand and be like, could you have picked a worse place to send these people than Yammer? I kept my mouth shut, but I was insulted.
Yeah. And so the thing that I want to complain about, number one, is just a great opportunity to make fun of Yammer, because I can't believe that anybody uses Yammer this day and age. But number two, it does a thing that Microsoft is doing in Teams and other products that I don't like, and I'm not sure what the correct solution for it is. I like the idea that files are being stored in SharePoint for a number of reasons, because now it can hook into Power Apps and Flow and all the search and all the great things. But it's dropping all of the files in the shared documents library, just the regular old, when you create a team site, there's a document library there. It's dropping all of these files in there. And I don't like that, because for some users, they don't understand the whole Teams and SharePoint connection. And so they upload a bunch of files in Teams and it shows up in SharePoint, but they really don't think about it. But then if somebody else comes in from the SharePoint side and tries to use the documents library, it's got hundreds or thousands of files in it that they don't know where they came from, and the wheat and the chaff and that whole thing. I wish there was a way to not have that be the case. And I know that, and then this has really been spearheaded by Mark, but when we set up customer we have the architecture talks and all that. We create a second document library for whatever the customer really wants to do. So like, client document library, department document library, but it is not the regular shared documents because we never know what thing next Microsoft's going to drop in there.
Yeah.
So we create our one-off one. And so I don't know for sure what the solution on that is, but I don't like how it is now.
Well, and this is going to sound like blasphemy, but why? I don't think that SharePoint's the right answer for this. In the grander scheme of things, right? SharePoint stores documents, yes,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
but there's better Microsoft properties for it, right? The Azure Blob Storage, if you're purely looking for storing documents, that would be the most correct place to do it.
Yes, but in this case, they're not just looking at storing documents. They're looking at working documents into graph, and so they show up at the SharePoint portal as the most recently used. And
yeah, right. I get it. I understand where it fits in the ecosystem, but at a way back here level, just saying, hey, let's keep shoving as many documents into SharePoint as possible, just doesn't sound right to me.
That's because of all the bad experiences you've had doing it with Power Apps. You see all the limitations from that side.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Power Apps. I won't do it. I just tell customers no.
I'm out. Hang up on them.
And so, like one of the other products, and I don't know if they made this announcement, so I won't say what product, but they are switching their internal structure. Instead of storing the files where they used to, they're going to start storing the files in Azure Blob Storage. Like they're like underneath the covers, so you're still interacting with their product. But underneath the covers, their product has stripped out their old crusty way of storing files and are using Azure Blob Storage behind the scenes because it's just... So
well, and SharePoint does too. SharePoint does too.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm missing the behind the scenes portion of how SharePoint's really dealing with these files.
Well, it is. It's doing that. And I think the reason that storing them in SharePoint, adding that middleman, sometimes the middleman's not helpful. But in the case of SharePoint, it is because it gives people another way to access the files from the SharePoint interface and all the great sorting and filtering and finding, search and again, the graph signals and all that. But yeah, I think ultimately those files are ending up in the same spot, the same bare metal somewhere.
And maybe that's the case. Maybe I don't know what SharePoint Online really does with the files today. And I'm guessing no one would tell me. But
no.
that would make me feel better.
Not especially after you saying the SharePoint's gross in the chat room.
Well, I mean, I said it in the chat room instead of on the channel, but yeah, I did say it. All right, well, it's
getting to be closing time. I had some great PowerShell things to talk about, but I think I want to put those off. So for scheduling wise, I go on vacation next week, and I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks on vacation.
I wish I got a vacation.
I wish you did too. Mostly so I wouldn't have to listen to you complain about not getting a vacation. But
that's fair. Well, you can sponsor one. You can start like GoFundMe for getting Shane off the show by getting him a vacation.
So I don't know what the schedule is going to be like, but I will be flying out this time next week, and I will be in full vacationing mode 2 weeks from now. All
right. Well, I guess I'll be doing this show by myself, or maybe I'll see if I can find someone fun to come join us.
You absolutely should. You should bring somebody on.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that's good. I had plenty of people in the chat room that probably volunteer. Speaking of the chat room, real quick, I want to say April posted a link to a Card Talk show episode where they talk about texting abbreviations for the elderly. Apparently, I think she was pointing at me. So
yeah, we should. Lori, add that to the show notes if you can see it. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right, Community Corner, we have exactly nothing listed in there.
Yeah, so I did my talk for the Mississippi PowerShell user group last night, so I really don't have anything queued up right now. As we've said before, if you want Shane or I to guest on your user group or whatever, gosh, just reach out to us. I don't think I've ever told anybody no, but I don't have anything lined up right now. There's SharePoint Saturday out in Boston in August. I don't think I'm going to do that, even though all my coworkers are out there. But that's a good one. But I don't have anything on the schedule.
Yeah, I've got something in Orlando in October, but I mean that's so far out that I'm going to go hunt the link down frantically right now. But yeah, other than that, I'm with you. I have no scheduled travel. I don't have any vacations, so
you're missing out.
I hear they're overrated.
All right. Well, it was good catching up with you. Chat room, I'll be sticking around for a while. It's Shane's lunchtime. He probably won't be. But hopefully next week I'll get all this produced before I leave on vacation. But then you'll see Shane going solo the next couple of weeks, and then I guess probably in 3 weeks I'll be back. Of course, that's the week of 4th of July. 4th of July is probably on Wednesday, and no, it's the 3rd. All right, so we're good to go.
All right.
So See you then. Bye, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Toodles.
All right. Always enough to talk about.
I know. We're just talkers.
You are chatty. Oh my God.
Yeah, one of the tough things about MBAS was my breakout session was 60 minutes. I'm like, come on. You're right. We're just programmed. 75 minutes is the amount of time that my brain knows it needs to stand on stage and fill. And I got to the end, and I'm like, shit.
Yeah, I did the PowerShell with Office 365 session for that group last night, and it was 60 minutes. But then there was a little bit of talking at the beginning and introducing, so I ended up getting like 45 or 50 minutes, and I'm like, if this was a SharePoint-y group, I would have skipped through all the stuff and just talked for the PNP for 45 minutes, but it wasn't. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, played heads or tails, right? I'm trying to bring that proud tradition. I threw in the all-day session, I think I threw like 12 of 13 heads.
Back in form. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they were. And so the one of the people in the front row, she swears, and she won, but she swears that like she can count the rotations when I throw it. And apparently I consistently catch it. I've just gotten so consistent. She called every single one.
Yeah, so that's a thing. I believe that. And that time that I remember, that I won that deal, it was based on that same thing. Because you throw heads all the time. And so something about them like that doesn't make sense statistically. That shouldn't happen. So I did some research on that. I think we've talked about it before, that is absolutely a thing. And for most people, whichever edge of the coin is up when you flip it is what it ends up being because of that exact thing. So, and it's consistent, just like that woman said, when you flick it, you almost always flick it the same way. It rotates the same amount of times. You catch it the same way. You always, like if you catch it, you always flip it over, and it is just that way. And so when I won that thing here a few months ago, the guy did one test run. It was forks and spoons, but he did spoons, and I'm like, okay. So now we're gonna put it in. Not that is Shane's heads, and so yeah, that was exactly the same methodology I used.
Yeah, it worked for her. It's kind of crazy little thing, but the dude, Lori, are you still there? Did you leave?
Lori is ever present. She's always there for us, except for next week. She won't be here next week for you.
Well, yeah. Next week I'll be on my own, but that's all right. No one will show up. It'll just be me recording. So, but I've got a fun little. So, Lori, when I send you the Chewy dog, I'll send you. Oh wait, you're up here. One of these little Power BI. It's like one of those portable batteries, or whatever. But it's Power BI. So I thought you would.
That's awesome. I don't have one of those.
I know. I will. Maybe I'll send you one too.
You should, along with my SysKit dealio.
Yeah, I'm serious. If I had just done that, 6 months ago. Like, I went out there at one point. I had like one all made and figured out, and on fathead.com. But now I don't know what they're really planning, but I like the idea of you doing like a bigger, not mural necessarily, but a bigger something kind of behind your head.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny idea. Yeah, I haven't heard back from what they're going to send, but they said they'd send something.
I'm going to go ahead and call Shenanigans and say about Christmas time I'm still making fun of you for this.
I would. So last night when I did the user group thing, somebody called it out. I'm like, at this point, it's a thing. I'll miss it when it's gone.
Yeah.
If we get it.
It's developed its own.
It's one of the people in the podcast now. It's kind of like the TV show Sex and the City. They talked about how the city, New York City, was like the fifth cast member, the fifth character of the show. Yeah. The SysKit sign is.
Well, and I think the other thing that's bizarre to me is I swear to you that it's gotten more crooked. And it's not possible unless your house is sinking. But I swear to you that it has gotten more crooked.
So, no, and I was going to show, so I was telling the person last night the whole story to tell, and I was going to show them, I still have the piece of paper behind it that's blank, that's got the X on it, and I was going to show that to them, but all but one corner is taped down, so I couldn't, it's not like I could be moving it because I taped it down, but it's not against, I would do that.
I wonder if your desk is somehow shifted or the camera the camera
might,
No. I don't know. It's just bizarre, but I swear that it is moving.
I've got the level downstairs for my 3D printer. I'll check my camera and check my monitor and check that. And,
Yeah. Well, and I'm guessing part of it is your camera, right? The whole curvature of the lens is adding to it, but it's just awesome. Okay, I gotta go.
Get out of here.
Chat room, I'm gonna hang up. So you guys, bye bye.